from doing some research, I see that you are a landowner and business owner. Your company is a land development company, and you are a land literacy activist. So, what is a land literacy activist? As land ownership is a basis for freedom and economic self sufficiency, what advice do you give Blacks who want to become landowners?
Well, we always start with thanking the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for lifting up the name of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and making the FOI class available to somebody like me down south.
Mm-hmm.
Land literacy is to be competent in developing your own land so that you can produce your own food, clothing, and shelter for yourself. So it has to do with competency. At one point in our development, the best skilled tradesmen were Black.
Mm-hmm.
We built everything. But after Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954, white people came back to Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia, and they were really angry. And they created what is called in Louisiana, the Contractors Board, where the Black skilled tradesman who was proficient at his skill was building all our houses, doing all the concrete, doing all of the infrastructure. They made it illegal for him to do it unless he had a contractor's license in 56.
Wow.
And so that meant that Black men had to go work for white companies, and they took their whole crew to work for white companies. So this is one of the tricks to get us out of the skilled trades. Well, if you work on a job, then you can't train your young boys in the skilled trades, in the building trades. And you leave the next generation land illiterate, and you force them, you socially engineer them into dependency. So that even if somebody gives you some land, you don't quite know what to do with it anymore. Well, this was done by design. And I'm grateful that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has opened up the door to highlight it, and that now we're bringing young Black boys back into the skilled trades so that we can be free to do something for ourselves.
Yes, sir. That's important. That's an interesting fact that you gave us. You said it was the Contractors Board of 1956. Is that what it was again?
Yeah, they set up contractors boards. And so in order to be a contractor, whereas before you just had to have a skill.
Right.
And you could go build houses, you could do the plumbing, you could do the electricity. Well, when they set up the board and put it in tricky language, many of the elders couldn't read or pass the contractor's test.
Right.
So that meant that the big white companies got the best skilled tradesmen. See, they socially engineer us out of it. And oftentimes when we think of a knowledge of self, we're thinking of reading history books and reading books. But part of the knowledge of self is knowing the legacy of your father and grandfathers and how they lived off the land and were self-sufficient, and how you take skills and trades from one generation to the next generation. And you know as well as I that Africans had a different perspective on death. We believed in transition, meaning that all of the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that I have, I put that knowledge and wisdom in the generation of young men coming behind me, and we get eternal life because they can perfect whatever I started.
That's right. That's right. Yes, sir. You know, as a community activist, you have been involved in various forums and town hall meetings discussing rebuilding Black communities and separation. So when you say separation, what do you mean? What steps must we take to rebuild thriving communities and create generational wealth that pushes over to the next generation?
Well, the first step is we need a man. I can't say how much that man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, means to this movement. Let me say something about image. You know, image is how young Black boys have an imagination. And imagination is how we get a purpose and a will to do something and to be somebody special. And all of the masculine Black male images have just about been destroyed. and so slandered that we don't pay any attention to him except the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so we want to separate so that we can do something for ourselves. We know that the land can produce something meaningful for us. And so in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's economic blueprint and message to the Black man under economics, he says that the first step of economics is to separate yourself from the slave master.
Right.
We must begin to move into close proximity with one another, with people who have like minds and like ideas. When we pool our resources together, we're not just talking about cash. Really, cash is the smallest thing on the economic scale. It liquidates your economics, but there are three components. Number one, you need land. Number two, you need skilled labor or army. Anybody that's a skilled laborer can easily be militarized. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So you need land, labor, and a little bit of cash. And you need an area that you concentrate on. You start out by having think tank meetings where you talk about what it is your intentions are. Then you start strategically buying things in that area. The number one thing that young Black people, and we should be focusing on, is all around these historically Black colleges. That's where we should start at, because that's where the young minds are. If you can't take over financially, you take over culturally. Let me give you an example. When the so-called Mexicans come here, oftentimes they don't have any cash. What do they have? They have the muscle of their skilled trades.
Right.
They live in military style where they might go get a house and live in there 8 or 10 deep, just bunkering down in what Black people used to do the same thing when we moved from the South to the North, called hotbeds. And they have a military mind, and they go on jobs and they get business. And if you have a skill, it won't take you long to get cash. Right. And so that's how you start it out. You start, I respect the gangbangers. I don't agree with some of the things they do in the gangs, but I respect what they're doing. But just imagine if we had a gang of skilled tradesmen.
Absolutely.
Bricklayers and plumbers and people who understood electricity and welding and truck driving. See, that's our game. And then we go into an area, you can get a lot of these buildings cheap. We've been buying them down here in Louisiana.
Absolutely.
And we can get together and refurbish them. The minister opened it up wide for us. We'll never be poor again because Minister Farrakhan taught us to do it.
That's right. You know, as we are sitting here having this conversation, it really brought the question to mind, you know, why is it necessary for us to engage in conversations about making historical Black business and cultural districts great again? You know, how important is it that we understand our past history doing for self, i.e. owning stores, hotels, newspapers, and having Black teachers who taught trades?
You know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he opened up message to the Black man, and he said, who is that mystery God? I was talking to a brother, and he told me about Black Wall Street, but we talk about it in such a superficial manner.
Right.
I asked him one question. I say, who built it? The conversation got quiet. Black men built Black Wall Street, and they built it for Black women and Black children. And we didn't just build Black Wall Street in Oklahoma. There were Black Wall Street and business districts all around this country. But after Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954, by 1956, they came out with the Highway and Interstate Act and Urban Renewal, and they took the interstate and put it slap back down the middle of all the Black business districts. Well, I coined the phrase that the saying, you can't be a bee without a beehive.
Right.
They scattered all of the bees. They took all of the talent out of the Black community and put it in white universities. And then like blood diamonds in South Africa, they buff these Negroes up and shine them and run them down the football field or the basketball field or the intellectual field, but they're disconnected from the beehive. See, we have to create a Black business district, and it should work the same way the Kaaba works in Mecca. You can be a Muslim anywhere you want to, but you have to have Mecca to circumvent around.
That's right.
And the activities in the Black community have to circumvent around the Black business districts.
That's
See,
right.
if you talk about recycling the Black dollar, you can't recycle the Black dollar under integration. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that integration was a hypocritical trick, and integration is a sin. And the wages of sin is death. But the gift of God is eternal life. And the only way we're going to have eternal life is we have to separate from God's enemy and start doing something practical for ourselves. If you will recall in the Bible, in Malachi, the 4th chapter, the 4th to the 6th verse, it said that Elijah would turn the hearts of the children back to their fathers. Well, that's what's missing. We don't know what our fathers done. We don't know what our uncles done. We don't know what they built. Men interpret love as respect. How can you be a man and we ain't built nothing?
That's right.
So the young people that they claim are disrespectful, in actuality, they're not disrespectful, they're practical. Until you can show your young people what we have built to advance them in the future, then we're being quite hypocritical to ask them to respect us. Well, it's something that we as older or the next generation have to do for the younger people, and they will help us.
And I don't, and I apologize for cutting you off here. And thank you for all that great information here. Just real quick, we only got about a minute left on this segment. How can we apply this law that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us about? The first law of the universe is motion. How can we apply this law to redeveloping our communities? By
remembering what the original sin is. The original sin is not marrying or being with a woman. The original sin is idleness. We are commanded to be in motion. We are commanded to do something for ourselves. And if you do something for yourself, God knows you will attract something to benefit self. That's the short answer.
Thank you, my brother. I really do appreciate you coming on tonight with us and sharing that wonderful information. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your night.
Thank you. Is it okay if I give out my information? Maybe they can go to www.growdirt.net. www.growdirt.net. Thank y'all so much for having me.
Thank you, brother, for joining us tonight.
Peace.
Peace. Let us pause for announcements from our sponsors. When we return, Vernon Muhammad will be on to discuss the latest dip in cryptocurrency. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with NNVnews.com.